All right, so of course, it's a lovely good evening and welcome to Ubuntu channel right here, your channel of choice as we get to bring to you different exciting programs that get to talk about different issues and different things. And hey, it's another Wednesday, and obviously the first Wednesday of this particular month, the month of September. It's good to be back on the program. I am your host, Lansani Banda, and this one is Meet Your Leaders. This is a program that comes your way every Wednesday from right about this time, bringing different leaders in the community, different leaders in the governance sector, different leaders in the country as we discuss different issues of value both to you, our viewer, as well as to everybody that follows this particular program. Now, this evening, a very interesting topic that we get to look at. Of course, we are looking at eradicating poverty through water or through solar-powered water. And this evening, I am also delighted to introduce to you my guest for this particular evening, who is the Chief Executive Officer, or simply put, that is Mr. Rodney Katongo, who is looking after or looking through Africa Access Water Organization. Mr. Katongo, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening and thank you for having me. It's nice to be on this program, and welcome viewers and those that are listening.
Mr. Katongo, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I'm able to hear you. I think there's a little break, but I'm able to hear you.
Mr. Katongo, are you here? I'm unable to hear you.
Okay. I'm able to hear you loud and clear, but you are breaking. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
All right. Thank you so much. Now, to those of you that are watching us for the first time,
Globally, 85% of infertility is because of infections, typically the chlamydia and the gonorrhea.
Your time is up. Thank you so much.
Since I've been mentioned, I can react to what comment Chinda just
I haven't finished my point.
Remember,
let me finish my point so that my brother can.
Does the Patriotic Front know the kind of damage they have done to our economy and to our country? I do not.
The alleged abduction of Pamela Chisupa, and this case has really kept us on our toes. And in as much as
nobody has been acquitted from this new dawn administration cases that have been started. There's nobody that has been acquitted. Okay.
CJ, foreplay. I'm not talking about jump and begin acting like a kangaroo. No, foreplay. Many of us as Africans, we lack this virtue. This is not there.
Yeah, the time twaje ku Malabo kwasa what the first game twale tena wa Senegal. I think bali tutasana ndareti because even the warm up you can see the way they are doing warm up. Bale munakati bola na bawina kale no.
It's actually good if you start creating competition in the team. If you don't create competition, then you will have a problem. Who to replace when one is injured?
The names people have been calling me, I accepted them and I will stand to them. But what I would prefer being called as a nickname, I would prefer being called Sambalung.
From it, we can't make the Bible fit us and have things that make Esther feel good, and things that Esther doesn't really feel good about, she'll edit out.
We're trying to represent Zambia from a different side of things. We just don't want to be regular, you know what I'm saying? We're trying to package ourselves to Africa and the world.
Ubuntu ninshira iyo abantu basenderamo ifyo umuntu akwiriye okuba n'efyo akwiriye okukita n'efyo akwiriye okwikaliramo ubuntu.
Okay. All right. So, all right. So, so sorry about that. Well, internet as usual, somehow, somewhere, got to throw me out of the studio. Do really apologize for that. Mr. Katongo, once again, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Okay, great. So, get to head straight into the program. Let's get to know more about Africa Access Water as an organization. What is this organization? What is it all about?
Okay, so thank you very much. So, Africa Access Water is a non-profit organization that is based here in Zambia. And its vision is that African communities be developed through solar-powered water systems. Basically, what we try to do in terms of our mission, obviously, is to provide and deliver solar-powered water systems for productive use, for food security, socioeconomic growth, and obviously just to improve people's livelihoods. And our three objectives obviously is how do we facilitate, promote, and provide these particular systems that they could stimulate what we call rural economies. The second sort of objective is that how do we advance gender equality and women's empowerment using or people having access, especially women having access to water for productive use. And obviously the third one has to do with research. How do we primarily, what we are doing, we collect data that then informs our work. So basically what we promote or what we do is water for productive use. When people are asked what when a word such as water comes, what do you think? Most of people just think that it's for drinking. And you would agree with me that we are very few institutions globally, regionally, even in Zambia, that pay particular attention to water for productive use. And by water for productive use, what do we actually mean? We believe that water should not just be for drinking, for instance, which primarily a lot of people talk about, like wash programs, clean drinking water, and for sanitation, which is an important ingredient. And we have that particular component in Africa Access Water. But we think that the major issue in promoting and installing facilities for water should first of all be for production, because once we install a facility such as that, then clean drinking water and obviously for sanitation or other purposes is included. So typically, I would give, for instance, an example of what we try to do. We have a model of what we believe before we go into the detail, is that once we install a particular system, it must have minimum 3 basic lines. Number one, obviously we'll do a water kiosk, which is not our very many sort of particular thing. The water kiosk is meant to provide clean drinking water from the same source that we have. It should also provide for irrigation, for instance. Then the third line should provide for animal trough. Why the 3 ingredients? These 3 ingredients are important in the provision of water if we are to talk about issues to do with better livelihoods, rural economies. So fundamentally, the thinking from our side and what we've seen from the global side, from the region side, and the countryside, there's been a call to venture in issues to do with water. If you look at the World Economic Forum in the last 10 years, you discover that literally every year, water is one of the top 5 agenda, or it's at risk. And even when you look at the 10 top agendas of the World Economic Forum, number 1, you discover that 9 out of the 10 are all linked to water. So for us, we thought we could design some sort of model that stimulate economic development using a water model. And I'm going to be explaining some of these particular things. But we think that water has been underestimated for a long time. And I think that if we paid much attention, we did more investment in water for productive use, we could, in terms of our development, faster. Why? Because most of our people are productive only 4 months. If you look at Zambia, because 70% of our people engage in agriculture. And when do they do these particular agriculture activities? You find that it is when rains are there. And that's the impact of water, because when there's water, even if you did not have the right inputs, at least you have a deformed maize or some deformed vegetable. Or at least once there is rain, people have something to eat. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's some sort of grass that they can turn into food. So you see how powerful it is. So what happens after, for instance, the 4 months where people are more productive? And we're going to have this discussion further. Most of our communities either go back into poverty, or they don't have what to do. They are lesser productive. They have to venture into other businesses or other things that they are not used to. Most communities become extremely poor. And so that is one sector. The other angle is that with the limit and challenges in terms of how much water can they have within those 4 months is an important question. We now come to how, for instance, our country is divided in what are called ecological regions 1 and 2 or 3, the most affected by climate change. If you look at the water situation in our country, you find that in places where we had plenty of water, such as the ecological regions 1, Southern Province or Eastern Province, Western Province, you find that many streams have dried up for many other factors. And one of them obviously is attributed to climate change, deforestation, so on and so forth. And so you've seen that the productivity of people has gone down. And once it goes down, it means that there is also lesser income in homes. and then there's poor nutrition in homes, then there's poverty in homes. And a country and any community or any human being to live, the first thing we have to do is to be food secure. Without being food secure, it is almost impracticable to do any other thing. So from that, we thought that we could create some institution that is going to help rural economies that can develop using the water. So fundamentally, it's just a nutshell of what we try to do. So far, this model that we'll venture in and explain around, we've tried it in Zambia. We started it with Nshibuyunji with about 60 women that we were working on. We put a system, a solar-powered water system, for instance, sink some boreholes and allocate 50 by 50 land and have 4 women do high vegetables there and find market for them, put drip irrigation for them so that we do not waste so much water. Each one of us making $100 every month in terms of profit. That's a significant resource. If you calculate it, you quantify it, you're talking about $6,000 every month. That's a huge, significant liquidity within a poor, small community. It means that you would have created some liquidity that then can be going around the community. And we've seen women advancing themselves, buying themselves an extra something or start up another business, such other things like that. And we think that this model is very critical for us. We've got also, like for instance, in Masopo, where water has been provided for animals, you know, and you know that clean drinking water also is important for animals. What does it do? It increases the beef that will be produced and can be sold at a higher price. For those that are dealing in dairy milk, it means it increases, for instance, milk production that can be sold, that can be for food and such other things like that. And we've seen it. For some of us who come from places where we don't keep so much animals, I was amazed 3 months after installing a system like that on how animals' health can improve. And that then is linked towards the incomes of the community. The third one, like we are saying in terms of the crop, I can challenge you. Water as a key ingredient has immediate impact. Number one is that if you install water for any particular community, number one, they will have clean drinking water immediately, improving their health. 2, if you're doing, for instance, a crop called rape, if you see on our blog today, and I'm going to explain, it can be done within 30 days. And literally every crop can grow within 30 days, for I think 90 days, sorry. But you can have crops that can grow in 30 days. It means that I don't know which business you can do that can start to end within the 30 days time or after your investment. But what has such an impact that you are able to have things like rape for your food and to sell. So within 90 days, whether it's maize, whatever you can talk about, can grow. And that then can make people, number one, food secure. Number two, they will have to find a way of selling the excess that comes. And that's how you empower the community. So for us as Africa Access Water, we pride ourselves as one of those that are advancing water for productive use. And why are we using technology? These are important things. There's no way God has given us the sun. There's enough technology in the world. There's water, whether underground or we can do dams. Why we can't do it? And our recent project has demonstrated just 30 kilometers away from here in Impande Village in Kafue, over the 3 villages where we're installing and what we are doing some amazing work there. Just yesterday when we tested on 32 young people to test them the power of water, they've grown vegetable. If you look at our I think our social media page of today, you see you see young people have already grown to demonstrate the impact of water that can change people's lives within the shortest period of time. But let me also state that what pushes us to do this, because we only supplement, for instance, government's effort towards development, are 3 fundamentals. Number one is that we look at the documents that the government have presented already. So let's look at number one. If you look at the vulnerability assessment report that is produced under the Vice President's office, it shows the places that are so much vulnerable in this country, including, whether it's ecological regions 1 and 2 and affected by climate change. And for us, we look at what has happened in these places with a period of time. For instance, partly Southern Province, where there's been massive, for instance, there was massive growing of crops and massive deforestation, for instance. How can water help to resuscitate that particular situation? How can we contribute to that particular report by making sure that the data that we collect, by making intervention that help to develop the country? Secondly, we are looking at the Vision 2030 for Zambia. I've not touched the Africa because our scope is in Africa. When you look at the 8th Nation Development Plan, or the one that was there, the 7th Nation Development Plan, you would notice that Zambia was losing about 0.4% of its GDP as a result of issues related to climate change. And if not attended, the report or in that particular document said we'll be losing about, in the next decade, about 0.9. And that report was produced almost 6-7 years ago. That in itself tells you where we are going and why we need interventions such as water for productive use. Secondly, again, looking at the National Development Plan, if you look at the current National Development Plan, it tells you that in transforming the economy, or the theme of what we have talks about agriculture as a key theme in terms of transforming our economy and job creation. If you look at the drivers, of economic growth, agriculture is there. But if you look at the enablers, you find that water and energy are two things that have been brought. So when you look at what we are doing, it still fits up in the thing that we've been calling on, using the energy that we have, such as solar and water, to sort of stimulate, to propel the nation into being, 1, productive, 2, the incomes that will come, and 3, obviously being food secure. So in a nutshell, probably I can have specific questions because I was trying to sort of explain why we created this fundamental institution. So whether it's the UN side, whether it's the Paris Agreement, whether it's government side, everybody's focusing on water, but also more, there's been more investment in clean drinking water, maybe not in these other water for productive use, because even afforestation, you'll need water. And by the way, as I conclude, in this particular short segment, as I conclude, is that if you look at why is it that even the president had to mention things to do with Zambia water investment program that he launched last year and won an award for that? When you look at that particular document, it talks about how water can be engaged so that we are able to create jobs. You're talking about 200,000 jobs, direct jobs. You're talking about another 800,000 indirect jobs, 1 million jobs by 2030. That's an amazing sort of concept. And when you look at that particular document, it begins to tell you how water for productive use become a special ingredient, and we must push this particular agenda. But more so, Africa has got almost the similar sort of setup, and that's why we are called Africa Access Water. And recently opened in Congo Brazzaville an office to also start to do it. And we hope that the model that we are building in the next coming 5 years will be able to be in another 2-3 other countries that are available. And I think I'll be glad to take up very specific questions because I'm trying to be a bit long-winded for the gracious time that you've given us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we do appreciate, and you've really given us an in-depth kind of introduction as regards what you do, in terms of water provision and the like. So I'd like to find out, from you, because it looks, the inspiration, the thought is, so great. But I want to find out, like, as you provide water water may be there, but if we are talking about utility of water on a large scale, there's also need for machinery. So how do you do it? Is it only on a domestic scale, or you also assist and provide on a large scale?
Okay, so our model, I think it's a bit on a larger scale. We do between smaller and larger scale, but our sort of thinking to drive it in rural communities is to use communal land plus cooperative or a group of people. So on average, the system that we want to work with is between 60 to 100 peasant farmers, for instance. If you look at the numbers and what that translates to, you are talking about a population by age, maybe about 1,000 or so, around 1,000 per each what people should benefit with. So we are talking about maybe another 10 hectares of land that should be maybe on irrigation. And I know that it requires some sort of technology equipment. And that's why we are saying that we need to use issues such as drip irrigation. How do we monitor how much water is being produced? And I'll be very glad, maybe even next week, that we could go together to one of the sites to just have an eye on what we're trying to do. So it's a combination of the technology that is available, but also using lesser water. That's why we're saying water for productive use. Okay, so here's a typical one that I'll do. Maybe we do say 40 or 50,000 liters of water, 50,000 liters capacity with boreholes that are sunk there. And then we have to assess the land that can be used. What sort of crop should be grown that could give at least better returns? That's what we're talking about. And that thing is just there to raise some sort of capital so that the community can access and tap into that water. So the program is not just to give them the land and they do and that's the end of it. No. So we want them, once they grow, we are able to knock out maybe a 10% or 20% of what has been done, or all these farmers, and create what we call a community fund. The community fund then empowers the community to have access to finance. Once they learn, once they are doing it together, once they have the resources, we wind them out. The 100, we wind them out after 2 years, and then go to another area or close that area. Those that have been winded, if I show you the statistics, shows that they are able to start a smaller scale where they can produce maybe under 2 hectares or 1 hectare. And then we can aggregate that particular crop. So we are recognizant of the fact that water is a depleting resource, which is a challenge even when we deal with boreholes. One of the issues we are doing this year is rain harvesting in many places. We rarely do that. We are doing rain harvesting, but still powered by solar, which we already have. We don't need to wait for electricity. We do not just want people to lift the buckets to draw water when there could be an easier way of doing it, but much more productive. How do we account that water using better technologies such as drip? It could be expensive, but our calculation shows from those women I gave like 60, if they're making $100 every month as their income, when you do your mathematics, they're able to have another system in the next 2 years. Number one. Number two, they are able to purchase drip irrigation for themselves. Number three, they are able to increase their income through that particular sort of thing. Number four is that they are able to start up other business. Number five, they are able to attach it to nutritional basis in terms of their, food security and other issues that are there. So it's so connected because you are injecting some sort of capital, or they're having some activity that injects some sort of capital that even if they decided to do some other things, they would have raised some sort of capital. The other second thing is that you're talking about being productive throughout the year. That's what is important. Do we know, if they're able, even in smaller quantities, if they're able to be productive throughout the year, they create a sort of business. There's some income that is coming in, and that liquidity is what now spans to other technologies, other economic activities, other purchasing power, because you need to have purchasing power to develop these communities. So for ourselves, we are saying technology is powerful. That's why we do some trainings around. So we do not just want to give you land, we do not just want to give you water, but there'll be trainings involved. For instance, climate smart agriculture, okay? That is incorporated within that provision of a water facility. But there will be an extension training that we do for those others that might not fit or are not in the cohort. For instance, we use that farm to show them that they can be productive. And then we also train them. What sort of training do we do when rain season has come? Because that's another component that we need to look at. Either to harvest the rain, but also to use, even in smaller quantities, the rain that would have come in that particular season, such as using what is called potholing, which we have seen, or gampani in our own local language. We can train people how to use water effectively. So it doesn't necessarily need the drips and the other technology that we're talking about. It could also be local knowledge that is there, or agricultural practices that are already known to be working. For instance, basins that can keep a bit of water, because we're talking about water, by the way, as a key stimulant to this thing. So in a nutshell, yeah. Sorry.
All right. I would like, maybe I missed the part. I would like to know you more. Are you a company? Are you an NGO? What are you exactly? And what is the modus operandi of your organization? How do you identify to say that these are the people that would like to empower and so on and so forth?
Right. So like I said in the beginning, we are a non-profit organization. And so the issue is that we are also trying and making sure that this concept really works and is scalable. So we go and source for funding, for instance, and then help the community in that particular way. So you ask me how we do and identify the communities. Number one, I said what informs us is also the VAC report, called the Vulnerability Assessment Report, that is produced by the Vice President. It shows us the areas that are also vulnerable, and it highlights. And that is our first point. So once we identify that particular place, like we identify, for instance, in Pande, and it's in what we call ecological regions 1 and 2, those west affected by climate change. We're talking about Southern Province, partly Lusaka, partly Central Province. We draw in on that particular communities or villages that are there. We then do what is called an assessment report, or a baseline sort of report, needs assessment. And this is what informs us in terms of the numbers of the community, what sort of solar system will do it with together with the community. And by the way, what we do every 6 months, we conduct what is called a midline survey to show us our intervention. Is it really working? Is it driving somewhere? And we work, and then we have this sort of a network with other players. We also discover that once you put water, there could be other issues that are there, like health challenges. How do we network with other players that then can help us in health? Because we can put water and people are having malaria all the time, and then they are unable to perform. What do we do? So that is how we select the places. That's how we come to design a place. So the system may depend, may also depend on the place we have found. For instance, maybe in Shibuyunju, we look at a few villages and there's one system. When we come to Mpande, you find that we've isolated, we've put maybe 3-4 separate kiosks with taps. We don't do hand pumps ourselves. We do tank, and then there are taps there, or distribution lines. And then we have 3 villages. So it also depends with the challenge that the community has. But we go there to solicit our own finances, whether through the companies, funders across the globe, within Zambia, and also outside. So that also gives us obviously a chance to raise some monies for the community. And ultimately, what we want is not just to give the community. That's why we're saying our program then will wind them out. Okay, we work with communities 2 years, 3 years, and then we could have another team come for training purposes. But the money that they would have raised and trained in financial literacy and this village sort of fund then goes to create another sort of system. So it means that it is much more sustainable, because you're able to make money that could be equivalent of that particular system. So in the next, because we've been operating for the last 5 years, and the next sort maybe 10 years, we know that there will be other systems that will be created as a result of the money that has been generated in these specific projects that are there. So it's a sustainable project that in future and in the near future, not even very long, because we already started that particular process. And part of our budgets are funded through these production purposes that we do. And hopefully, and soon we also have our own sort of farms that will generate income to also help the community, so that we do not always have a begging bowl around the world and doing global trotting around. But also, I must say that it's a good model, because we could also do a package in terms of loans that are very interest low loans to many other communities that are there, as one of the key project in our current setup that we want to venture starting 2024.
Maybe Mr. Katongo, just hold it there. I would like you to break it down into small pieces and bits. I want to know what this package comprises of. I've heard you've talked about boreholes, tanks, you are mentioning loans. Now I want you to take it easy and tell us what this package is comprised of. When you have identified this a community and people are there, what exactly are you providing them with? And what conditions do they need to provide? Is there any consideration from the side of the beneficiaries?
Okay, so that's good. So I'll break it very slow, and I'll break it down in this way. So once we identify a community, we agree with the community. The community finds communal land. Okay, so running like a cooperative sort of. So we have a criteria who are the most vulnerable ones. For instance, we target women as the first beneficiaries. Okay, so the community will make us identify these women, whether 6 to 100, or if it's a joint men and women, we have a number and we agree, here is the land, here is 10 hectares. This is where we want to do that. After that, what we do, we assess that land, we bring water engineers and see, do we have water available on that land that has been given? Once that is done, we then can either do drilling of boreholes, for instance, depending on how big we want that project to be. So we'll drill the boreholes, we will put water tanks there, water stands, and then we will also do drip irrigation there. But since it's an integrated system, so it will have 3 lines. So one line can push maybe 500 meters. We will have water coming to that point for drinking. So these will be taps, maybe 5 taps from the same borehole, one integrated thing. So it goes, so once we do the borehole, the water goes into the tank. One line takes it where people can drink. One line goes for the irrigation in the line that we've put drip irrigation. Another line goes for animal trough. So we create a small animal trough where water will drop there and animals can feed. So that's a typical sort of system that we have. In the absence of where people don't do animals, we can do like a fish pond, where they could do the water. Now we've gone further that if we can't do, for instance, boreholes, or boreholes are becoming a challenge now, we also are trying to do mini dams or dams. And these dams are also to help recharge the boreholes, or recharge the water into these boreholes. So typically, that is how this particular system will be. So because we are working with the community at that particular level, and the communities we work with, it's a loan for the community. Okay, so once they start their production of crops and we have the market for them, a percentage that is taken from what they are getting is what creates what we call a community fund. It is in this fund that the community taps in. What do they want to do with that money? Is it another water system for production? Is it a community school they want to build? Is it to have access for financing? For instance, now in Mpande, what we'll do is that we've created, they will be having some fertilizer for their growing in other sort of because they've got land already. And this is one beautiful thing about rural communities in Zambia. They have land. There's massive land in Zambia. Massive land. It could be tradition, but this gives us the very first resource. And that is why we take, and that's why we are giving, or we are taking these projects to these people, because they've got the capital, which is land. So it's sort of joint partnership with them. And then once we wind the 100, we bring another 100, they go and make another system like that. So basically, that's the package we are doing. But we've seen the demand when I was talking about loans. For instance, there are also commercial farmers that would love to do with the solar-powered water system. One of the conditions is that we can pay half of the system that they want, on the condition, for those that are farmers, maybe small-scale farmers, on the condition that they are going to allow a certain number of women or community beneficiaries, like an outgrower of the crops that they'll be growing as a commercial farmer. And we allow that they work with those women or the peasant farmers for the next maybe 2 years. There could be 20. And then that is how the payback is. In the meantime, we are looking at how much would have been generated, how much can we help these once they move the 20 or 30 or 30 or 40 to go and create a smaller particular system. So in a nutshell, that is what then we are able to provide. Apart from that, we'll combine it with some trainings, some capacity building, the maintenance system, which I know that you are asking, because water problems has had to do with maintenance. Even a hand pump is a problem in many places. Actually, for your own information, I think there was a DFID report 2 years or 3 years ago that noted that half of almost all the hand pumps that are installed do not work in the first, after 1 year, or in the first year of its own installation. So when you ask yourself, there are two factors that are there. Number one, it's a design of a hand pump. For instance, you suspend your pump at 35 meters. So if the water goes slightly down, what do you do? But that challenge is not there with solar pumps. Now, if people are only going to concentrate on water for clean drinking water, even when they say they contribute, some communities, it's even hard to contribute a 10 kwacha because they don't have productive means throughout the year. They only have maybe those 4 months. So our system, the advantage is that because they are productive, they're able to produce and sell. There's a justification to knock off a certain percentage that goes to the maintenance of the system. Even when you ask them to contribute, they'll contribute because you know that they are making some money. So how do you ask people that are making literally nothing to contribute? So we have sorted the puzzle of one, the system itself. We've also sorted out the challenge in terms of maintenance system. But this project offers so much opportunities for the business world. For instance, insurance. We can insure a system for the first 1 year as we are raising money to the maintenance of the system. How can a private sector that deals with inputs, that deals with soil testing, that deals with things, come and partner? So you see, already in that community would have created, that's why we call them creating rural economies using water. So basically, that's how our package is. So there's the technical side of packages in terms of boreholes and other things that are tangible things. And then we also have soft side of it in terms of training and linking it to several markets and increasing sort of resource within the community.
You've put it right. This is a combination, a kind of approach that you are using, the soft side and the technical side. Considering that that is the way it is, have you partnered with, some other organizations or are you doing this on your own and depending on funding? Or how exactly are you operating in terms of resources?
So basically, we have a robust sort of fundraising component where we've partnered with different people, different institutions. First of all, we had to demonstrate ourselves. By the way, we are founders of this institution, a Zambian, and we must be proud about it. First of all, I will tell you that in the first year, a lot of people know we raised $60,000 within Zambia to start our first project. Amazingly so, and people couldn't understand how we made it. So we had to demonstrate that we've got the capacity, we've got the right sort of model. So we've partnered with different funders and partners. I will draw it back specifically to, like, for instance, the Mpande project, where we've partnered with an Israeli organization called Tevel, who are more of sort of specialists when it comes to community development and integrated community development. As you know, Israel is one of those countries that was strong by doing cooperatives, or what are called kibbutz, if you read the history of Israel, and they are strong and they've got the right technology, and they came in and partnered with us. So what we've done in Pande with them is that we are working in 3 villages. That is 3 villages with a population between 7,000 and 10,000 people. And in these communities, we are going to create 3 sort of communal places. We've already started with a demonstration farm that is about 10 hectares of land, where we are working with young people. As you know, jobs are a challenge, and we hope that these young people can be the change makers to train the community also. So far, 32 young people. So Tevel is one of those institutions that we have actually partnered with. And obviously working with Musika and other players, including the government itself. For instance, some of the training and many trainings, we've partnered with the district office in Kafue, agriculture district office, to give their sort of expertise in what we are doing. After all, we can't be doing things in isolation. Ours is to contribute to government's role to provide some of these things, or put a framework that works for the community. So we've got one side in terms of those that we've partnered with, and other players, obviously, that we've partnered with, different institutions that are there. And I also would recently have partnered also with what is called SIGO Foundation, who are supporting developing the institution. This is an American funder that is providing some of these capacities that going forward into next year, we hope we could increase. Recently, as you saw, Mashav from Israel, again, the state of Israel, have been very supportive. They supported the Shibuyunji, where they fenced and put a fish pond and expanded our operations there. They came in again through Excellency Ofra Fai. Recently, they've just put, we've just installed a greenhouse, a vegetable and tree nursery greenhouse. And this greenhouse is intended that we need to produce the quality seeds or the quality seedlings that are needed for the community, because other communities may have water, or they have capacity to sink a small bowl for themselves, and then we could supply them with the qualities we teach them. So this is meant that instead of only buying somewhere else, we are able to distribute at a minimal price to the community. And also, obviously, the issues of the trees, as a place we are working on, some of it there's been massive deforestation, charcoal burning. We want to replant some of the trees with the community, or using what we call a community engagement, where there are other processes of trying to help people with water, such as planting of trees, using the same model that we're talking about, giving them an alternative livelihood. And the best alternative livelihood one is closer to what they do, in terms of them growing crops of different variety throughout the year. So those have been our key, and recently we were joined by a group of Safari Jewish groups that came to visit from US and others. So there are a number of them that sometimes it depends with the donor. Others may not want to be mentioned, but I think in some of the documents you see what we are trying to do. And we go on many other partners we've done. I think some of the training of young people, we've done it with National Youth Development Council, Red Cross, the Ministry of Health also. Currently, as I am talking about, in the area we work, there's no clinic, there's nothing. We are using our facility. We've put some accommodation to have a life experience. We are doing an extension of what is not our key mandate. They are training community health workers, but using our facility, you get, and also those that we are training. So water, once it's installed, brings an institution within that particular place, and then other things begin to come in. So that's why we're saying it attracts so many other things. So in terms of partnership, we are not only limited in people that are dealing with water, but I must say that it's been overwhelming even from the government side, as you may have the record of them coming even up to the highest level, also a representative to come and see what we're trying to sort of doing. So for us, the biggest partner now that we want to engage many more and we would love to do is government. And I hope that some of the ministries, such as Ministry of Water, using the Zambia Water Investment Program, can be the very biggest sort of partner. We've made presentation. I hope that we will make a significant sort of progress. We are able to help out in terms of raising money if we collaborate more. It requires a lot. If you look at that program, Chaza, it talks about creating million jobs through agriculture. How? It's through the water that we are talking about. And so those are the ones that I can think of and maybe allowed to mention in terms of partnerships.
Great. And looking at the kind of collaboration and partnership that you have, it seems you are terra firma in terms of being sustainable. Now you have told us to say you identify the people to be assisted, the places that need assistance. What about those communities, those people, those groups that have, identified you instead and would like to approach you for that kind of a service? What do you have to say? Can you accommodate them? Do you have, accommodation for them?
Yeah, of course, as we go on, we accommodate. Others highlight to us that there's a need in such particular community, or we are a group of this, and then we could sit down and look and have a team to assess, because we must assess in terms of do they fit within the criteria, because remember, we formed this institution with some specific sort of objectives. And so if it doesn't go outside the objective, that's number one, it's okay. We can create some sort of collaboration around it. Part of the biggest challenge obviously has to do with the financing. We may and have the capacity to do that. So it's what limits us. And that's why for us has been a very huge call that if even an endorsement of what we are doing by government could be a stimulant to raising even much more. If we could collaborate more into this thing, it could be much more. And going forward, starting next year, because we are working now on the second sort of strategy or strategic plan, we are incorporating that and how we could, those that identify us, begin to chat, or if we have the resource, we are able to do that. We've done that, for instance, in other communities, even the villages where we were, we didn't intend, for instance, to put a water kiosk separately from what we do in Shamanjanji village, but we managed to find resource within a month and put them a better system from donors. So it depends with what is the case around. But I must mention that what we are looking forward is to make sure that now that we have a solid and concrete model of development, we can now begin to core up, scaling it up, because we've seen it's worked, we've tested it. And before we even talk about other countries, like I mentioned, some who have adopted it, we need now to deal with our community. So they are welcome to engage with us, and probably it could be easy for them, and we'll be glad. I must also say, sometimes we wonder on how other players do not want to partner with different institutions. I think it's a huge crisis, especially in our space, many space in Zambia like this one. If we could collaborate, just idea, maybe they have land and then it fits. Why wouldn't we do it? Another thing I forgot to do, in one of the areas, we've converted a hand pump into a solar powered water system. And sometimes we ask these people, okay, since you've got the resource to sink a borehole, why can't we bring panels and the tank, so that many people can draw water at once, not only having one point where they're drawing. They could have 3, 4, 5, 6 taps. Reduces the time they spend time to draw water. It is also easier to treat that particular water. So some people will become rigid, maybe because it's about the numbers. I'm not sure. We could utilize we've seen installed facility like hammer mills, in other places, which they only, it's just hammer mill. What happens if they are not grinding mill? Can we also tap into those solars and we provide the tank at the borehole? So we are looking for such sort of collaboration, and I think that it's incumbent also from the private sector. I can assure you that in the next 10 years, in the next 5-10 years, it's a huge market for people that want to do it. We know places that could do a very low interest rate, almost at 0, 1, 2%, and we put those particular system and they're able to pay. One of the issues we are saying is that, are we able to have that land as almost collateral? We know we have problems with traditional land, but is there a way of securing such particular land and people are given monies? Because sometimes it's not for free. If we are doing a loan facility, why can't we put solar powered water for productive use at a loan and give you 2, 3, 4 years to pay back? You are paying back. I think there are all these sort of opportunities that come with us, and we hope that they are welcome. They can obviously contact us. We'll have the teams on the ground. We can have robust discussions that are there. And also, we hope that next year we're also going to be growing crops just using water, because you just need nutrition. Maybe we don't need so much water. Hydroponics, as people talk about, and we introduce them in these communities. And I can tell you that there's sufficient technology, sufficient knowledge. We are able to also bring in sort of investments that could be available for our communities. And there's no excuse why our country cannot develop, why 70% of our population is not as productive as it should be in 8 months, when we are being told, I think it's a report that says in the 10 years, agriculture growth has been very, very, very low. And you're talking about contributing only 5.8 to GDP. On average, it has been growing on 0.4, 0.4%, which is very, very, very low. And then you're talking about contributing to GDP in very low, on average 5.8, which is extremely low, against a population growth, annual growth of 2.8. So if we do not sort it out, the problems will even span much more. There are no jobs, but there are people that venture in agriculture. Why should it just be maize only? Obviously, maize, we need it. But what happens in the next 8 months? So let them come across. Let's also do the thing, and let's look how we could work around it. I see, yeah. So even individuals, like I said, if you're a farmer, if we are doing it, if we pay half, are you able to pay half? And then our half, the community must benefit. If it's the entire one, can we deal with it? Are you able to get financing at moderate interest rate and pay back? Those are the conversation, because we can't all the time give for free, because it may not be very sustainable, you know. So I think we have different models we've worked on, and people are free who can identify areas that are much more heated. And we hope that next year in the strategy, we expand the scope of what we do.
Beautiful indeed. At this point in time, maybe I can read out some messages from our, audience out there. This one is coming from Pesi Chama. Pesi Chama is saying, lovely topic. They are enjoying. Pesi, thank you so much. It's good to know you are following there. And another one coming from Jack Tatila. Jack Tatila saying, Africa access water at work. Thank you, Jack. It is definitely a good thing to know you are there following. Chibonta Jule is saying, great discussion, and has a question and says, do you support individuals who have land and struggling to go into farming? I think briefly you've talked about it. Maybe you can readdress, that issue, to Chibonta.
Principally, I think in terms of what we do not deal with individual farmers. We deal with more of groups and communities and cooperative. But like I was saying, there's always an option, like I said, that if it has to be an individual farmer or individuals that want to venture in farming, are they willing to share the cost? Or if we put that system, can we agree on some of the terms but allow a certain number of people to benefit? You see, we're talking about a good number that could, or if the project may employ a number of people to benefit in terms of creating jobs and making much more, it could be something that can be considered. But for now, I think our focus is more communal sort of land, and between 30 to 100 people put within. But ultimately, our idea is once they graduate, they can have their own system which we can support. So in other sense, yes, but it depends with where and how you want us to work around that sort of help.
Beautiful. With us, such a so much inviting kind of, provision that you have, how can people access you, physically, socially, and so on and so forth? Social media platforms, physical address, the telephone, numbers, and so on. How can people access you?
Okay, so we've got sites where we have people there, but we have an office that can address your issue. Is on lot 5676 M/6 in Makeni Villa. You can contact us on telephone number +206 211 231174. I hope I'm not very fast. That's our landline. You can catch us up there. 211-231174. I think those that are watching us online, if you just Google Africa Access Water, website is there, or africaaccesswater.org, www.africaaccesswater.org. You'll find us on Facebook. It's Africa Access Water AfAW, on LinkedIn. So got platforms, and I think we are very open people, and catch us up there. There are provisions on how you can get in touch with us. You can still email us at info@africaaccesswater.org. You can please call our line 0976944695 on mobile, and then we'll be able to address some of these issues that are there, or a particular officer will be in charge to deal with that particular matter that is there. So we are very open. You can find us website, and then the contacts are available. And those that would want to even email me directly, in case you can't get it, you can still email me at Rodney, RODNEY, at africaaccesswater.org. We are open to issues that we could discuss. Sometimes get overwhelmed, but we'll definitely respond and set up the meeting. You can set up the meeting, and we'll be very happy to have some sort of discussion and how we move forward.
Great, a beautiful discussion, I must say. But time is not our best ally. At this point in time, I would like you to give us your concluding remarks. Even some item or two that you feel we have not tackled, you can reach out to the people that are following.
Number one is that we call upon the government to sort of collaborate even much more. We are happy to meet different stakeholders, and that's important. We also thank them for coming to check, and those that we've been collaborating with. We thank the Israeli government that has supported us, also Tevel and many other players that have been with us. That's number one. The last one, in conclusion, is that let us try water for productive use in terms of stimulating rural economies. And we call upon the private sector to support water for productive use. We call upon both international and local institutions that can finance, and we could share how these models work and see the transformation. I think in the most shortest period of time in terms of impact, it has a month, 2 months, 3 months, you're able to see and measure. And we just call upon the government also to put incentives on how some of these products could be reduced, such as agriculture technologies, into the budget processes, that some should drop down in terms of whether there are solar tanks and all these things that agriculture, so that we could support this particular sector. For us, we believe that solar powered water can eradicate poverty. Thank you.
Beautiful. Mr. Rodney Mwape Katongo, the Chief Executive Officer, Africa Access Water, has been our guest here, and we are so highly indebted to you, for coming to this platform, Ubuntu channel, on Meet Your Leaders. We look forward to even have more time with you, with the kind of idea and undertaking that you have. We are definitely fortified, and we are looking forward to having you even next time.
Thank you, Chaza, and please, I invite you to visit one of our sites so that when we are speaking, you are able to confirm. Thank you.
Definitely, that will be my pleasure, and I'm looking forward to that opportunity. To the people out there, the followers that you've been following the program, and those of you that have even participated by sending us those comments and questions, we greatly appreciate. And those of you that are even yet to follow this program on Ubuntu channel, we greatly appreciate. This has been Meet Your Leaders on Ubuntu channel. Your host, my name is Chaza, and Lance, my co-host, has actually failed due to connectivity, and we sincerely apologize. Till next time, we're saying peace, God bless, and take care of yourselves.